Welcome back to RGR Football. It's that time. We have to start talking about all kinds of nonsense and what ifs and possiblies because it's all over until training camp. We got Matt Derrick back, though, from ChiefsDigest.com, where you can find all the information. How are you, Matt?
Exhausted, but fine.
Right. So you're ready for the vacation streak here of June and July, right?
Yeah, I'm with the players. I'm ready to if I could go off to a beach for a few weeks, I'd be great with that. Not in my cards, but that's okay.
Right. Hey, as long as it's not 100 degrees, we'll see how well that works out. But at the end of the day, this is like the downtime. This is when everybody has to get away, take a break, like mentally and physically. Players still need to be, doing stretch and do some workouts. Like we talked a little bit about weight gain through camp and what guys are going to do. So maybe some guys are going to be training a little bit harder during this 6-week break than normal. But when you take a look at where we are right now, given all the additions and everything that's gone on, what happened in OTAs, as they leave town now, how do you feel about where this team is going into training camp versus, say, where last year was?
It's almost night and day. I mean, because there were so many questions at this time last year, just how the season was even going to progress. What was in the future. The players hadn't done any work. I mean, everything had been virtual. At this point, even talking to Willie Gay, we find out that he didn't even have a copy of the defensive game plan and playbook at this time, last year. And that just, for a team like the Chiefs that, one, they've got more players in minicamp and for the mandatory minicamp than any other team in the league. They've had virtually a full house. Everybody was there in attendance for this. No injuries relatively to speak. I mean, Kyle Long was obviously an issue, but they've escaped, the offseason without any setbacks in that regard. You're sensing, this team has an edge. I mean, they've enjoyed, I think, benefited from the fact that they've all been able to get together this time of year, which they couldn't a year ago. The rookies have gotten time, which they didn't a year ago. The second-year players even getting time is a big deal because this was a whole new experience for them. I mean, and I think that's going to be important as far as even the development of those second-year guys going to year two, getting this chance to get their feet wet before they get into training camp so that, it's all a little bit more fresher for them. So, as a whole, the Chiefs are, I think, benefiting from this in a big time way, in the sense that they've had so much buy-in from their veterans for the mini camp. They were able to get a lot of work done that they feel pretty good about. So compared to this time last year, this team is light years ahead of where it was. And I think that they feel like this has been a good time for them.
I think that's great. It's funny that you mentioned Willie Gay because he's one of the guys that I'm looking for the biggest leap from because of what wasn't there for him as a rookie. And we all know he didn't play a ton in college. So like he of all people in that last rookie class, second-year players now, needed that time. When you take a look at that specifically, and maybe it's about the addition of Ken Flagel as well, like how does that take Willie in particular forward? Like, do you have higher expectations for him from when we last saw him on the field? Evidently the injury is completely done and not an issue at this point, right?
Yeah, it looks like there are no restrictions, nothing that's holding him back. And yeah, I think you see a great deal of comfort. With what we've been able to see during OTAs and the mini camp, Gabe was playing with a lot of speed, looked like he was really comfortable in a lot of things they were doing, even during drills. It looked like he was a lot more comfortable than he was during the season last year. And I think you're right. There's absolutely, I think, every reason to believe that second-year leap is there for Willie Gay. And maybe it's going to be bigger for a lot of those rookies from 2020 that, because this offseason has been an opportunity for them to get more looks than they did last year and get a lot more comfortable. For Gay in particular, you're right. Just because of the experience that he had. And we even saw, during minicamp, we saw that, Ken Flagel is out there, working with the outside guys and getting them some extra coaching. Matt House is still working there too, but it's just another voice in their head that can work with them on things. And then you see that start to translate, into the 7-on-7s, and you see it translating into team periods. And that's important because, a guy like Willie Gay didn't get any of that this time a year ago.
Yeah. I wouldn't have wanted to have been in Willie's position. I'll put it that way.
Last year was the worst year to ever be a rookie in the history of the NFL. I throw out even the lockout year. This was 2020 was a bad year to be a rookie.
And when you take that next step further, right? obviously we saw LDT come back from a year gone. Lucas Niang's in a similar position, but he didn't go through the struggle and the frustration and honestly being ill prepared at that point. Do you think when you compare Willie struggling through and not having that support and Niang now coming in without any experience, but now he has like the full team around him, who do you think's in a better position given that they were both starting from zero?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I mean, Gay certainly has a huge advantage at this point, and I think that's mentioning Niang is an interesting position because I think that it's important that even though Niang clearly did a lot of work on his own, he worked on trying to get himself into shape, and he certainly used the outside coaching and kept in touch with the team and did what he could during that off year. It's still an off year. I mean, for all intents and purposes, Lucas Niang is a rookie. And he's a third round rookie tackle, which is high, but that's not the expectation you have for a third round tackle, is for them to come in and be able to start immediately on the outside. Right. That's why, I mean, I would temper the expectations for Niang and what he can do, because for all intents and purposes, he is a rookie. Now compare that to maybe a guy like in a different position with Trey Smith. Trey Smith he's a 6th round guard, yeah, but the Chiefs will tell you he's a 2nd round guard that had medicals that dropped him down. And you know what? The expectations for a second round guard is to come in and start. So, I think that the tough thing for Niang might be that, he is essentially a member of the 21 draft class. And as that case, he's probably going to be compared to Creed Humphrey. He's probably going to be compared to Trey Smith. And the reality is that there are 3 different players in 3 different situations. And just because maybe Niang isn't as ahead of those guys, or maybe he's in the same ballpark as those guys, it might not translate into time on the field because the position that he plays at is a tougher position. There's more competition there. But, that year away, I think, is going to make a difference.
Well, and I think this particular season, those 3 guys, ostensibly from the same draft class, like you said, after the opt-out year, they're going to have 3 very different stories if my expectations come to pass. But that said, 2022, I could see all of them being the starting 3 from center on out to the right side.
Could absolutely be. And you're right. I mean, they do have different stories. They've got, different career arcs that are in front of them. And that's nothing wrong with, with all 3 of them. I mean, it's not a knock. If Niang becomes the final one of that group to become a starter, it's not a knock against Niang. It's just the reality of the fact that, he was coming from a different position that they were in his career, different competition, with the guys that are in front of him too. So you're right. It would not surprise me at all that the Chiefs have 3 rookies who are essentially future starters on that offensive line. But it also wouldn't surprise me if the 2 that start faster are the inside guys.
Yeah, could be. Although I will say that doesn't bother me as much because, like you said, a 3rd round selection, you usually expect year 2. Well, so this is year 1. That's fine. But I do think in terms of scheme fit, he's probably the closest to in college to what the Chiefs want to do. So, like, in terms of being asked to do what he's already done, I think he's got a little bit of an advantage there. That's going to be really interesting to toll. But we should talk about Trey because we're expecting, weeks from now to see Kyle Long back. If that doesn't happen, the expectation for me is going to be LDT and Wiley kind of battle it out. Wiley's not going anywhere unless there's a trade. He is going to be a quality depth piece no matter what, whether it's on the right or the left, and we know that he can do both. To me, I don't see that with Trey Smith. He's a right guard as far as I can tell. I didn't see anything that makes me want to move him over, but is it a point now where if LDT's firing and Trey Smith is coming along, I know he can get out and pull. I think they're very specific. I want to see his feet improve before he's out there as a starter. But if those 2 are firing and Kyle Long does come back, say it isn't the first day of camp, maybe it's a week later or whatever, is there a possibility, or from what you're reading from Andy Reid, is this out of it, that Kyle is a guard as well? There is no tackle option for him.
It's really interesting because the injury might change that a little bit because, with Long not being around for a while, and he's going to be back at some point, and it could very well be that he's back by week 1 and fully healthy and ready to play. It could be that he's back by week 1, but he's not ready to start yet. And if that's the case, then, I think that Kyle Long coming off the bench is probably more likely a swing guy than Kyle Long as a starter. If Kyle Long is going to be a starter in week 1 and start most of the season, I think that would probably be at right guard. But if Kyle Long is your sixth or your seventh offensive lineman, he's coming off the bench, he can play any position. And so, to a degree, I mean, the Chiefs, depth wise, would be fine if someone else wins that right guard spot and Kyle Long is able to come off the bench and give you snaps anywhere. Because once again, I mean, that's one of the things that the Chiefs ran into last year that, they couldn't really ever get away from is that Andy Heck and Andy Reid both have the philosophy, which is that if you're going to make a change on the line, make as few as changes as possible. You don't want to be moving two or three guys around and weaken two or three positions when you can just bring in one guy, next man up, and take over that spot. So if Kyle Long is your sixth guy and he needs to come in, you're not going to be bringing him at right guard so you can move somebody else around. I mean, you want him to come in and play whatever position that may be. It could be left guard, it could be anywhere on that line that he's capable of playing. So I almost think that Kyle Long, if he comes back in a utility role, is probably more valuable for the Chiefs because it also tells you that it means that somebody else has won that right guard spot and is playing at a really high level.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. And whether it's here, Trey Smith, I was going to say the same thing. That's a perfect role for the rookie, in my opinion, to come in short yardage on a sixth lineman type set, which I think might give Andy a reason to call that a little bit more, and just do what he does and bulldoze in short yardage situations, get some reps, get his feet under him a little bit. That said, there are other young guys that aren't, rookies, but I think there's a lot of question, and we saw DeAndre Baker working out, like in terms of movement, wasn't doing drills, wasn't on the field, but I think he's really a key component in what happens in training camp. They've been saying they're going to have him back for camp. I'm not 100% sold on that, but we'll see when we see. But from what you've seen of the rest of the DBs, guys like Bo Peep Keys, like Mike Hughes, who's in here, who seems to be in that range of where DeAndre might be bumping some of those guys around if he is back on the field. How do you feel about if Baker resumes where he left off, where he fits in the scheme of, like, say, 6 corners and 4 safeties?
Yeah, if Baker's able to come in at the beginning of training camp, and all indications are that it looks like he will be at least ready for football activity, whether it's the beginning of training camp or first week or so. I mean, the Chiefs do expect that early on in camp he will be ready to go. But if he's able to come back at the level that he was playing at before he went down and anywhere close to it, I mean, he's absolutely a part of that rotation. Whether he would be a starter yet, it's hard to say. I think that's still open. I mean, it's up for battle. Mike Hughes, I will say, I mean, it looked more and more comfortable as the weeks progressed through OTAs and through the rookie and through the mandatory minicamp. So that's, I think, a very positive sign that, if Hughes is getting things down and can come in and be competitive, that's a big deal for the depth of that position group. Still not sold that the Chiefs will not be looking for, maybe some additional depth out there. And it could very well be all the way through training camp that they're looking for additional depth at that corner spot. That seems to be the one position I think they would like to shore up. But a lot of guys are going to get a chance there. And you're right. I mean, Bo Peep Keys, Rashad Fenton, it's going to be a piece of that. Ward and Snead are right now clearly the top 2 guys, but how they work in the rotation and where Snead plays, who comes else in, I mean, those are all things that are still need to be figured out at training camp.
I'm really looking forward to that aspect of it, and hopefully we'll have an idea of how much visual we're going to get from there. But thanks for filling us in and keep us on the straight and narrow, Matt.
Do my best, Ryan. Thank you very much.
Folks, you guys have a great week. We'll be back with you with more tomorrow, and make sure you like, sub, and hit all the things. And go over to ChiefsDigest.com. That's where you need to go to find all the information. You guys have a good one, and we'll catch you next time.
Thanks for watching this video from the team at RGR Football. Click these videos to see more and subscribe to RGR Football.